Okay, geweldig. Dr. Heilige Mishnah. So we discussed the shaila of when an uber a child. Israel shenissas l'kain. Israel who was nissus to a kain. Oh, you know, I just realized that amongst all the other things I was missing, my pointer was missing. Oh, look at that. So who knows where that is? That's what I said. Okay. Bas Israel shenissas l'kain. No, it's okay. I have a finger. Bas Israel shenissas l'kain. A Bas Israel that to a kain. Umeis, and the Kohen died, but the Bas Yisrael has children from the Kohen. So since she has children from the Kohen, she's allowed to continue to eat Truma. And if she can eat Truma, she's also allowed to be Michael to her Avodim, Truma. Now her Avodim are what we would call Nichsim Aluk, that they come in with her, and when her husband dies, and when the marriage is over, they go back out with her. Those the chasim, those avodim remain with the estate, so they belong to all of the yorshim of the deceased, which would include the henichim uberis, which would include this unborn fetus. So because unborn fetus lo yoichlu avodah haV'truma, the avdi toim barisol will now not be allowed to eat truma mipnei chelkei shel uber, because from these avodim the uber also has a part of them. The uber is one of the yorshim of the father, and the halach is uber poisel v'nemachal. An uber can cause someone not to be able to eat truma, and an uber will never allow someone to eat truma. So the example is what if a bas kohen is married to a Yisrael? We know if a bas kohen is married to a Yisrael, she may no longer eat truma. If her husband, the Yisrael, should die, she goes back to her household, her parents' household, and she. However, if she's pregnant, then she can go to her parents' household to eat truma. She wouldn't be able to eat truma. So that's an example of where we're poison. However, in Michael is in exactly the opposite case. If a bas Yisrael married a kohen, so while she's married to the kohen, she's allowed to eat truma. When the kohen dies, she's no longer allowed to eat truma on his account. However, if she has children from this kohen, or grandchildren even learned, then she may continue to eat truma. But what if she doesn't have children or grandchildren, but she's pregnant? She would not be able to eat because of the uber. Now, once that uber is born, she'll be able to eat truma. But while she's pregnant, she won't be able to eat truma. So an uber could passel, but it won't cost divrei Rabbi Yosy. So therefore, since these avodim are also partially owned by the uber doesn't allow that eved to eat truma. We don't know which of these avodim will end up in the chelik of the uber and which one won't. So because of that, none of the avodim would be allowed to eat truma. Divrei Rabbi Yosy, this is the words of Rabbi Yosy. Now, there's two possible reasons that the Gemara is going to discuss for this halacha. One reason is because an uber bim'ei zara, an uber in the womb of a woman who's not a kohen, she's just the wife of a kohen, that's called a zar. It's called a zar. So it's an uber. It might be a person, so to speak, but it has the status of a non-kohen. That's one pshat. The other pshat is, no, the uber is considered a kohen, but there's a special limud that a yulud could be Michael, any yulud cannot be Michael. It says, Kol yulid beisa yoichlu balachmoi. We darshan, Kol yulid beisa, anyone born into the kohen's household, not only can eat truma, but can be Michael, the mother, with truma. But that's only before it's born. It cannot be Michael with truma. Divrei Rabbi Yosy, these are the words of Rabbi Yosy. Amrullah, they told him, Al Bas Yisrael L'Kohen, if you're going to say that this halacha applies by a Bas Yisrael who married a Kohen, well, an Af Bas Kohen L'Kohen, the same exact halacha should be with a bas kohen l'kohen, umeis, and then the kohen died, v'nichem uberes, and he left over his wife pregnant. Again, because of the uber, who also has a chelik in the avodim, lo yoichlu avodeh b'truma. The avodim shouldn't be able to truma mipnei chelka shel uber because of the chelik of the uber.
I don't understand that last part. What does that mean? That the avodim don't need truma because of the uber? Why is that?
Because they're partially owned by the uber, right? And an uber cannot be Michael b'truma.
The bas kohen maybe could.
So I mentioned, and the Gemara is going to get into the details of this, but I mentioned that there's two possible reasons why, by Abbas Yisrael l'kohen, why the uber messes up. One shot was uber b'mei zar has a din of a zar, and if that's the case, if she's a kohenesh, it shouldn't be a problem, like what you're asking. But on the other hand, if it's shot that a yulud could be Michael, and yulud can't be Michael, that means even a baby, a kohen, can't be Michael if it's not born. So then it would apply equally to a kohen, a kohenesh to a kohen, as it would to Israelis, because it's not a din in zaras. It's not because this baby is not a kohen. It's because this baby is a kohen, but it doesn't be Michael. It's possessions with the truma. So it's an unborn child. And that's exactly what the focus of the Gemara is going to be. What is the reason? And therefore, would it apply to a bas kohen l'kohen?
Why would we even have a svara? She's a bas kohen, he's a kohen. The kohen never goes after the woman. Never goes after Moshe. He goes after Beis Aaron.
True. But who is the father of this child?
The kohen.
So that's why we think it's a kohen. Because could be till the child's born, it's called part of the mother. So till the child's born, its own yichus is not yet dominant.
But if it's part of the kohen, but it's part of the mother, then I can understand why the mother should be able to eat truma if she's a kohen.
No, the mother can eat truma. The mother can eat truma anyway.
Even though she's feeding the uber?
Yeah, because you know if the mother has a status that she can eat truma and the baby doesn't, how could she eat? Yeah. It's a very interesting.
Can you bring that up?
The shayla that you brought up is actually a little earlier. It was relevant by if you're allowed to feed an animal that you rent.
Right.
So the shayla was if a Yisrael rented an animal from a kohen or it was a soil, he's allowed to. So we learned the reason why Yisrael is not allowed to feed the behema truma because he's having enough from truma. Yisrael is allowed to have enough from truma. So there's a whole shayla there. Why? So the certain Rishonim will learn that the reason why you can't feed your behema truma is because then when you eat the behema, you're eating truma. So there's a whole big side if that's true. Does that mean if you have a bird that ate shkotim or mushroom, so now you can't eat birds or chametz, right? So there's a whole side. Because people don't eat fish. Yeah, but could be that's because it could be because it's undigested.
Well, there's another dimension to the shaila, and that is that if you shech and the animal inside has an uber, you don't have to shech that uber, right? Even if you
called a ben pekua.
Ben pekua. So ben pekua can be running around and you don't have to shech, right?
That's not because you don't have to shech. It's because the shechita on the mother is as if you shechted everything inside the mother. Because it was geschochten already.
So we see from there that the uber is.
Okay. Ibailahu. Time with Rabbi Yosy. What is the reason why Rabbi Yosy says that a Yisraelis married to a kohen, and as an uber, the uber is going to prevent the nichsei from barzal from eating truma? Is it because uber b'mei zara zaru? fetus is a kohen, even if the fetus is a kohen, something that's in yalud can't be meichel. Lamai nafkamina. What would the difference be between these two approaches? It's lo'ober b'mei if the mother was a kohenes, if it's because ober b'mei zara zarhu, well, here it's not a problem because it's b'mei kohenes. But if it's al yalud eina yalud eina meichel, then even if the mother was a kohenes, the avodim would still not be able to teach her. What's the Allah? Omar Rabba. So Rabba said, Hainu Talmud Rabbi Yosy. The reasoning for Rabbi Yosy is the kasover ubiur b'mei zara zarhu, and therefore this halacha would not apply to a bas kohen. Rabbi Yosy Omer, no, yalud meichel, she'ein yalud eina meichel, and therefore it would apply to a bas kohen. Meisvei freik the Gemara. Let's see what the Brisa says, and the Brisa elaborates on the machlokes that our Mishnah brings down between Rabbi Yosy and the Chacham. Amruloi, the Chachamim commented to Rabbi Yosy, Me'achar she'edeta batlanu al bas Yisrael l'koyin. Since you told us that a bas Yisrael l'koyin, that's where you expressly said that the avodim, the nichsei tzim barzel, would not be able to eat truma because of the uber. What would be bas koyin l'koyin mach? What would halacha be by a bas koyin l'koyin? Omer lehem, Rabbi Yosy responded to them, Zu shamati, I heard about a bas Yisrael shenises l'koyin, that the avnei tzim barzel cannot eat truma, but v'zulay shamati. But regarding a bas koyin l'koyin, there I never heard that the avnei tzim barzel could not eat truma. So in fact, they could eat truma. So based on the distinction that Rabbi Yosy specifically made in the Brisa, we would say as follows: If the whole reason why, when the mother was a Yisraelis, that's why the Uber cannot be Michael, his chelik of the Avodim with Truma, that would explain why Rabbi Yosy said, I only heard this when the mother's a Yisraelis, but I didn't hear this halacha that even if the mother's a Kohenes, the Avodim can eat Truma. Yalud Michael, She'ein Yalud Ein Michael. Well, then, in a svar, the halacha should apply equally, even if the mother was a kohenes. So, my zu shemati v'zolay shemati. So, what are the wording that Rabbi Yosy seems to indicate that if the mother was a kohenes, then the avodim would be able to eat truma? Zakamar, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. There's no difference between if the mother's a kohenes or if the mother's a Yisraelis. Zakamar kasha. No, you have a kasha on this lotion, but we could still argue and say that this would apply. This would apply to the mother who's a kohenes. Amar Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Zu divrei Rabbi Yosy. These are the words of Rabbi Yosy. But the Chachamim argue on Rabbi Yosy, and they say Yesh leibanim oichlem mishum banim. If there's other children there, if there are sons, so if this woman has children, but if this woman has children and does not have any ubarim, only live children, so then everybody could eat mishum banim. She can eat truma, her nichsei maluk can eat truma, as well as the nichsei tzim barzel. Ein loy banim. What if there's no children at all? Then oichle mishum ach. Then who are the yarshim of the nichsei tzim barzel? The brother of the deceased. The brother of the deceased would also be a kohen. Ein loy achim. What if the deceased has no brothers? Oichle mishum mishpacha kula. Well, then you'd be able to eat. The avodim would be able to eat truma because you would say that they now belong to the extended family of the kohen, which should also be kohen. So Zok Gemara, Zuvaloi Svirle, what is the expression of what Rabbi Shmuel said? This is what the Rabbi Yosy holds, but the Chacham hold otherwise. So that would
why isn't the Chacham mentioned in the Mishnah?
Who said the Chacham aren't mentioned in the Mishnah? What was the Amrullah? Amrullah is saying, based on what you're saying, Rabbi Yosy, this should even apply to kohenes. We disagree about the whole thing.
So we have Rabbi Yosy and
the Amrullah. We also have an Amrullah. We disagree with Rabbi Yosy because based on what you're saying, this should apply to a mother that's a kohenes as well. Not that but we disagree with the whole thing. We disagree with your
So
whole.
that's the Chachamim, the Amrullah?
Correct.
Okay. It's usually not expressed that way, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's
it's
a-
definitely not typical. Because the reasoning for them isn't even discussed. Right? They're just trying to
Right,
show him an
right.
inconsistency within what he's saying. All they're saying is if you're right, then this should be the halacha. But they don't say what they hold. Here's where they say what they hold, and that is, it doesn't matter. Zok to Gemara, but it's mashma zuva l'shvirle. It's mashma. When Shmuel said, "This is the words of Rabbi Yosy," what the Chachamim say, that sort of has a connotation that Shmuel is siding with the Chachamim. But that's not true because Amalei Shmuel or Rav Chana Bagdasa. Shmuel told Rav Chana Bagdasa. And Rashi says there's two pshatim in Bagdasa. One pshat is very simple; he came from Baghdad. But the other pshat, Rashi says, is a Bal Haggadah. Bagdasa means he's a baki in the Haggadah. And he said, "Fuk Aisi Li Beyasar. I want you to come outside and let's gather 10 people together because I'm making a proclamation now, and I want everyone to hear it. I want everyone to hear my proclamation and my psak. The Emelach Ban Payu, I want to make a public announcement that Hamizaka Uber Kana. If you're Mizaka something to an Uber, you want the Uber to be kind of something, the Uber will be kind of. Which means the Rabbanan held that we don't care if this mother is pregnant. You know why? Because an Uber can't be kind of anyway. So therefore, the Uber doesn't have a portion of the Yerusha. So therefore, if there's an Uber, it's completely not relevant. If there's brothers there, the brothers are Kahanim. If there's other relatives that are Kahanim that will be Yarshining this deceased, he will be able to feed Avadim. You don't take into account at all the chelik that the Uber has, because an Uber doesn't have any chelik in the Yerusha. After he's born, maybe he'll get a chelik. But while he's an Uber, he has no chelik of the Yerusha. But Shmuel said beferish hamazakalu Uber kana. So how could Shmuel indicate that he doesn't hold like Rabbi Yosy? Rather, he holds like the Rabbanon. He very clearly stated and proclaimed that the Uber has a chid. So now we finally unlocked what it is that the Chacham said. The Chachamim disagree with the whole thing because the Chacham hold the Uber has no impact. Ela zuv v'svirle. Elamai, what are you going to have to say? That zuv v'svirle, meaning this is what Rabbi Yosy said, that the Uber is koina, and therefore because of the Uber, you will not be able to feed the Zavat and Truma, and Zok Shmuel, and I hold like that. So then, my Kamash Shmuel, what is Shmuel trying to tell us? If Shmuel is trying to tell us this is Rabbi Yosy, but I disagree, so that's what his opinion is. But if he agrees with Rabbi Yosy, what do you mean to say Zudiv Rabbi Yosy? So tomorrow the pleading Rabbi Nalai, Rabbi Yosy. All Shmuel wanted to indicate is don't think Rabbi Yosy is a Das Yachid. Don't think Rabbi Yosy is the only tzak, even though I pass like him. No, he happens to be that Rabbanan argue. I pass like Rabbi Yosy anyway, but I want you to be aware that there's a Rabbanan who argue. Fact the Gemara, Umi Pligi, is that true that there are Chachamim who argue on Rabbi Yosy and hold that an Uber does not have any zechiyah in the Yerusha? And I'm going to read the Bach. The Bach says, "Va'amar Rab Zakai." Rab Zakai said, "Zu edus heyed Rabbi Yosy mipi Shmai v'Avtalyin." This edus was said over from Shmai and Avtalyin, v'haydulai, and they agreed to him. So if they agreed to him, there is no machlokes. So how could you say Shmuel that there's a machlokes if Rabbi Zakai said that everybody seemed to have agreed to Rabbi Yosy? Rabbi Ashi, Mika Tani the Kiblu. It doesn't say they were makabelit and they paskin like that. No, it says v'haydulai katani. They mistaber time. All they're saying is Rabbi Yosy, you have a good svara. We hear what you're saying. However, we don't have that Kabbalah. Our Rebbe's taught us otherwise, that the Uber is not Zoicha, and the Uber will not impact the ability of the Avdei Tzoyin Barzel to be able to eat Truma. So you see from here, you see from here that if you have a Kabbalah from your Rebbe's tell you something, even if you, with your logic, think otherwise, and you think Pshat should be otherwise, it doesn't make a difference. You put aside your logic, you put aside what you think, and you are makabel from your Rebbe's. That's what you see from here. But how you like? The Chacham were moited him to mistaber time, but they didn't change their opinion. Their opinion is still to follow what they had become. Tanu Rabbanan.
No, you don't see that. all you see that you follow your Kabbalah, even though he follows his Kabbalah.
Right, but even though they liked Rabbi Yosy's svara, they still didn't say, "Oh, since we like your svara, we're going to adopt your psak." No, we like your svara, but we're still not going to adopt your psak because our Rebbe taught us otherwise.
The Haidle wasn't because of Mishmaya Italian. The Haidle was because of the Svar Shabbat. Right?
Correct. Correct. Tanur Rabbanim. Hiniach Banim. What happens if Hiniach Banim? If the deceased left over children. So the halach is Hiniach Banim Elu ve'elu oichlin. So the deceased left over born children, but the wife was not a mubaris. So then Elu ve'elu oichlin, meaning the wife can eat on account of the fact that she has children from the kohen, and therefore she can be meicher on nichsim alum, the avodim that are nichsim alum, and the nichsim tzayim barazel, which belong to the estate, can also eat truma because all of the owners of these avodim are brothers that are alive. There's no over here. What about a nichim mubaris? What if in the same case there were no children, there was only a woman who was mubaris? So then Elu ve'elu oichlin, the woman and the nichsim alum cannot eat truma because she doesn't have any children from the kohen. And the Nichsit Tzayim Barzel cannot eat. The Nichsit Tzayim Barzel cannot eat truma because there's no one. There's no live children who could be Michael these avodim b'truma. Hiniach banim v'nich muberes. What if she was pregnant and she had children? So then she can eat on account of her children, and therefore her avodim, her nuchsim alud, can eat truma as well. Avdim just like she's allowed to eat. But Avdim and Barazel, which belong to the children, lo yoichlu, they cannot eat truma because there's an unborn child here who has a schus in his chelik of the avodim, and he can't be Michael. Why? That was a Tzvar Rabbi Yosy, which is pretty much the way we learned until now. The next two shittas are going to require a lot of explanation, not only to understand why they say what they say, but even to understand what they're saying. So Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosy Omer Mishum Aviv Habas Machelas. Abbas would be Michael b'truma, but Ben ain't Michael. Son's not Michael b'truma. This is a cryptic phrase. We don't even know what it means. In the Gemara on Amud Beis is going to explain it. Rabbi Shimon Yochai Omer Zecharim Yochelu Kulon Zecharim Yochelu. If there are some male children, then the Nichzei Tzem Basil Davadim can eat. But Kulam Nekevos, if they're all female, then Lo Yochlu. Then, if there's no male children, then the Nichzei Tzem Basil cannot eat. Why? Shema Yimtza Uber Zachar. Maybe the Uber, maybe the Uber b'me'imai is going to be a male, and if it's a male, ve'ein lebanois b'makam ben klum. That means the girls who are already born, they don't yarshin anything when there's one boy, and if one boy yarshins everything, and this boy is an Uber, so he cannot be Michael as avodim b'truma, and therefore the avodim cannot eat truma. So let's see Rashi. Kulan Zachar. Like Rashi in Kulan, like in our Gemara, it doesn't say Kulan Zacharim, it just says Zacharim Yoichelu. And what Rashi, Hachi Yashim Zacharim Yoichelu, like our Girza, and Kulam Nekevos, but if all the children are Nekevos, there's no male children, then Lo Yoichelu. And Rashi explains, Im Yes Zachar Bebadim. I'm sorry?
Not having any other children at all.
What's the same thing as? Let's see. So let's see what Rashi. Let's see how Rashi explains. Im Yisachar bebanim. If there's one male child, then oichlim ha'avadim b'shviloi. Then on account of the one male child, the avodim could eat. How could they eat? Is there not an uber there? And if the uber is a boy and the uber has a chelik in it, and the uber cannot be Michael, so how come if there's even one son, we let the avodim eat? We're not worried about the chelik of the uber because there's a roiv that there's no problem. There's only a miyut of a chance that there's a problem. Why is that? Because first of all, 50-50, it's going to be in the keva, right? The shem in the keva, ve'in lechelek b'makom ben. and the keva has no chelik in the Yerusha if there's brothers. And even if it's from the 50% of children born that will be male, Shem etapel. This over might not make it a full term. This over might die. So then there's only a mute of ubarim that will end up into live males. So therefore, shechala yeldois mechta zacharim umechta nekevos and v'yeshem apilos. So therefore, smoich miuto de mapilos lemechta de nekevos. If you look at all the different ubarim, you'll take 1% are mapil, 50% are girls. So there's only 49% that will be live males. So let's just say Samaych miuta the mapilas the mechta in the kevos havalu zecharim hareuyim liyaresh miuta. The chances of having a child that will actually have a chelik in the Yusha is less than 50% of the possibilities. Ulamiuta loy chashin. But if it's cool on the kevos, but if all of the children are only in the kevos, then lo yoichlu, then you can't eat, like Dubi says, because it's as if he has no kids at all. Shema yimta uber zacher. Maybe the uber will be a male, and that means the avadim are solely owned by this uber. Vein lebana is b'makam ben klum, and the uber cannot be ma'achul tabad. My area.
How does that work? We also only have 49% that the girl might survive because
That's
half
right.
of them are boys.
That's correct. We don't need the girl to survive. Because if the girl, so let's say if the girl who survives, and if it's an uber who didn't survive, in either event, the avadim would be able to eat truma.
Right, I'm just trying to understand. But if she's got 49% and he's got 49%, what happens to the 2%?
The 2% are those who died. So it's a total of 51. The total of 51 who are not going to impact the achilas truma. So Zak the Gemara, my area shema yimtza uber zach. Why are we saying the reason why you can't be Michael Truma? Because just in case the Uber is a Zocher, that means none of the girls get any Yerusha. Everything goes to this Uber who's a boy, and he can't be Michael Truma. Tevik in the cave and Nami possible. Even if this child is in a cave, it's also going to possible. You know why? Because if this child's in a cave, then she yashes together with all her sisters, because there's no brothers. So then Mimanim Shech, no matter what this Uber is, these Avadim shouldn't be able to eat. So you're right. One reason why the avadim can't eat truma is because if the uber is going to end up being a nekeva, then she has a chelik in the Yerusha like all of her other sisters, and therefore the avadim cannot eat truma on her account. Or because maybe it will be a male, and then it yashins the whole group of avadim, and therefore the avadim can eat truma. Zakt Gemara. Then Laban is b'makam ben klum, and girls don't yarshin at all when there are sons there. Frank Gemara zecharim yochelu. How could you say that if there are some zecharim, the avadim can eat truma, but yiko uber? Isn't there an uber here? Zakt Gemara, like Rashi already explained. Turning over on top base, kasaver ein chayshina lamauta. Obviously, we're not passing like a mayor. Who's chayish l'miuta? You're not chayish l'miuta. So since there's only a 49% chance that there's going to be a male who could yarshin, we're not chayish. Nowadays things would be very different. That's right. But in those days they didn't have that ability. In a klami. Nowadays things would be very different. So let me ask you a very interesting side. Reb Meir holds loy chashin l'miuta. But let me ask you a question. Is this a miut? Or maybe it's a svek sveka. Suffolk male, Suffolk female. And even if it's a male, maybe it's not going to survive. Right? So the problem is, Reb Meir is chayish l'miuta. Okay? But Reb Meir holds that svek sveka, Reb Meir holds that a svek sveka is mutter. So the question, so you see from here, I don't know. But it doesn't really matter. Because how do you a svek sveka would be mutter even according to Reb Meir? Yeah, Reb Meir is chayish l'miuta. The teretz is, you see them here clearly that we don't consider this a svek sveka. This is considered a roy. Why don't we consider this a svek sveka? Because a svek sveka, I'm not sure, But we know for sure this is not going to have the status of a Svek Sveika. Maybe because we don't have two separate starting over here. Really, is it a Zachar or not a Zachar? There's really the Shaila is a one Shaila. It's only one topic. Is this a male? Is this a male surviving child? Yes or no?
No.
There's many reasons why it wouldn't be.
No. Is it a male or a female? And if it's a male, is it going to survive?
But that's not, all of that is not relevant to our Shaila. All that's relevant to Shaila is, no, it doesn't matter if it's in the Keva. It just matters if it's not a surviving Zoch. So could be that's why it's perceived. I'm sorry? I don't know. But there's another pshat that you can learn. Even if you're Chayis L'Miyuta, you're Chayis L'Miyuta. So if that's the case, if you're Chayis L'Miyuta, then we need to be concerned about the Uber. Why could the Avodim eat? So tomorrow, the Avdinin like Takanta Karav Nachman. You make a takana for these children like Reb Nachman Omer Shmuel, like Reb Nachman said in the name of Shmuel. What is the takana? Reb Nachman Omer Shmuel. Yisayimim shabo lachlik v'nichsei avim. If Yisayimim are coming to split up the Yerusha, so Bezdin mamidim lehem apitropos. Bezdin will set up for them an apitropos, a power of attorney. Ubayrer lahem chelik yof, and he will split up, advocate on behalf of all of these children to make sure each of these children get the best possible chelik that they can get. However, higdilu yachayim mumchos. That's what they remain with their share until they're adults. Once they're adults, we might have to once again split up the Yerusha again, so now they might have their own opinions as to what they would want. But for Reb Nachman Didei Amar, no. Once the apotropsim, once they split up the Yerusha on behalf of the Yisayimim, ein yachayim limchos. Once they're adults, they can't change it. That becomes their chelik permanently. Dimkain, because if you would let them undo it and redo it later, ma koyach bezin yofer. What worth is the koyach habez? So you see, Reb Nachman Yitzchak holds that the apotropos could, and of course it goes with hefker bez nefker, I'm sure, but an apotropos can determine who gets what chelik. So if that's the case here as well, even though there's an uber, and the uber has a chelik in the avodim, and therefore you're going to say the avodim shouldn't be able to eat truma because of the ownership stake of the uber. No, what they'll do is the apotropos will say that this uber doesn't have any avodim. This uber gets a field. The apotropos will split it up in such a way that the uber will not have any chelik in the avodim, and that's why in our brisa it quotes that if there's other live boy children, even if there's an uber, he won't impact the achilas truma because Rav Nachman says that we will make sure he doesn't have any chelik in the avodim. So Rav Nachman Tanoihi say that Rav Nachman's halacha should be machlokes tanoim because in our brisa we listed off two shitas. Right, we had the first shita who said that they can't eat, and it was only the third shita, Rabbi Shimon Yochai, who said that if it's chorim yerchelim. So maybe the machlokes between Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon Yochai is whether or not we hold like Rabbi Nachman, whether or not the Rabbanon could get involved, the apotropos can get involved and say who gets what chelik. Zok to Gemara, no, loy the chulama is to Rabbi Nachman. Everybody would hold that if they actually went and did that, it would work. And for sure, the Avodim could eat. But Bahacha, we're speaking in a case where that didn't happen. And the question is, like we said early on at the top of the Amid, whether or not you're choshish that there could be a miut of surviving male children that would have a chelik of the Yerusha. Okay, now we have Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosy, Aimer Mishum Aviv. This is the middle shita that we had in the brisa that we didn't know what it meant, and what he said was habas Michael, Abbas could be Michael, haben ene Michael. So, Frank the Gemara, let's try to understand what these words mean. Maishna ben v'loy Michael. If they're surviving sons, the avodim can eat truma. Why? Because we're worried the mother's pregnant and the uber's chelik would not be able to eat truma. Well, bas nami. Even if there's daughters there, loy sachel, if there's other daughters there, even if the mother's muberis, we said before that the chelik shalober should disqualify the avodim from eating truma, and we said the mother. If it's a male, then the male owns all the avodim, and therefore the avodim can't eat truma. And if it's a female, well then all the other siblings are female as well, so the uber will still have a chelik. So Amar Abaye, I'll tell you what the case is. Why over here, a bas is Michael and a ben is ain't Michael. What happens if a man dies and he has daughters and sons that survive him? Now, the halacha is normally that the sons get to Yerusha and the girls have to be fed from the estate. But what happens if there's not enough estate to feed the children and to give a Yerusha to the boys? So you know what happens? What happens is all of the Yerusha goes to the girls, and the girls get to eat and survive and be finance themselves off the estate. And what are the boys going to do? The boys have to go schnorring for themselves. It doesn't pass for girls to go schnorring. So if there's not enough to go around, we take the Yerusha away from the boys. You go schnorr. And the girls, they have to be supported respectfully. When it says Abbas Michael, it means there's one son and there's a lot of daughters. So therefore, we've taken out to the Kana, we take the Yerusha away from the son and we give it to the daughters. So therefore, if the Uber is a Ben, that Uber is loy adif mehai dekai. He's no better than the child who's alive. And we take away the Yerusha from him and we tell him to go snore. So therefore, it all belongs to the Bas, and the Bas is now born, and therefore the Avadim can eat Truma. And Ibasi, and if the Uber is a Bas, right, which we say they do get it, so she will have a chelik in it. No, she won't have a chelik. Because Amai Achla, why did we give the Nechasim to the Bas? With the Kanta de Rabbanan. Because it's Kana from the Rabbanan that they need to have a way to survive. Well, guess what? Till this baby girl is born, she doesn't need any food from the estate. So therefore, like the Kina Rabbanan. So because of that, regardless, no matter whether or not this baby is a boy or a girl, it will have no chela in the Nechasim. Therefore, the Nechasim belong now exclusively to the surviving daughters, and therefore they're alive, they're born already. Therefore, the Avadim can eat on their account. So you want to say that the Bryce is speaking about such an unusual case where it was Nechasim Mu'atim, and because of that, there's no chance that the Uber has any chelik in it. Well, let's see if that makes sense. The second half of the Bryce, which Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said, that if there is a child, if there's an Uber, the Avadim can eat because Shema Yimta Uber Zachar, the Ein Lebanis B'Makom Ben Klum. But that's not true. Adrabah, Nechasim Mu'atim, the Banis didn't. Didn't we say that by Nechasim Mu'atim, the Banis get it all? So you cannot say the Bryce is speaking by Nechasim Mu'atim. Zak Tamar, you're right. Maybe the Tanakama is speaking by Nechasim Mu'atim, and maybe Shimon Yochai is speaking by a different case of Nechasim Merubim. Seif Asam Nechasim Merubim. The Seif is going to Nechasim Merubim. So that's what the Gemara wants to say now, that the Tanakama is speaking by Nechasim Mu'atim, and Shimon Yochai is speaking by Nechasim Merubim. Zak Gemara, but you still cannot say that, because you cannot say that the Tanakama is speaking, or not the Tanakama, but Rabbi Shimon Yochai is. I'm sorry, Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi Yosy. You can't say Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosy. You can't say that Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosy is speaking by Nechasim Mu'atim, and that's why it all belongs to the girls who are born already. So are you going to say that it actually belongs to the girls? We know that they can. We know that we don't let the boys to take from those Nechasim, and we make the boys go snore, and whatever value is there, we'll liquidate and we'll feed to the girls. But that does it actually mean that it actually belongs to them? That's not true. The halacha is by Nechasim Mu'atim, it's taken away from the boys, and now the girls feed off. Well, what if they illegally went and sold it to a third party? Then the halacha is mashemachur machur. The mechira is a good mechira. So you see, they have the ownership in it. If they have no ownership in it, then they wouldn't be able to sell it. And the fact that they could sell it and mess up the takana, you see they have an ownership in it. So if they have an ownership in it, once again, if the baby's a male, it should aser the avadim from eating truma. Zok to Gemara, you're right. Velamai basta katani is aim. So let's go back to read the Bryce inside now. So the Bryce says over here, first was the Tanakama who said that if there's an Uber, the Uber will pass. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosy Omer, Mishamav in the name of his father. Habas machelas. That means aim. That means the mother herself. The mother could be Michael her avodim betruma. Why? Because the mother will be Michael her nichse malum with truma. Haben in Michael. But his son, who owns the nichse barzel, he won't be able to. Now, basically, that's saying exactly what his father Rabbi Yosy said. Rabbi Yosy also agrees that if the woman has children that are born already, that means she has a right to truma, which means she has a right to be Michael her nichse malum with truma. And when we're talking about the nichse barzel, the nichse barzel belong to the sons. They won't be able to eat on account of the uber. So, Frank the Gemara, if that's how you're learning shot, that bas means aim, it means the mother, since she has boys that are born, she could be Michael her nichse malug with truma. Then Frank the Gemara, ihachi hanu Rabbi Yosy. That's exactly the same thing as Rabbi Yosy. When you read the Brisa, it says it lists off Rabbi Yosy, and then it says, but Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosy says something else. You're telling me that Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosy is agreeing to everything that his father said. So I was like, what is he coming to say? So to Gemara, no. Kula Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosy katani la. There are no two shittas. It looks like there's two shittas listed in the Brisa. First Rabbi Yosy and then Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosy. But no, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosy was talking the whole time, and he was saying everything over. So it's all one big shita. It's one big shita that if there's a mother and she has born sons and she has an uber, then her avodim, her nichse malug, will be able to eat truma on account of her. But the nichse and barzel, which belong to the Yarshim, they won't be able to eat truma because of her vlad. Who's Rav Asi and Rabbi Yechanan? Oh, wait, Rabbi Asi and Rabbi Yechanan. No, because it seems like that's unanimous. It seems like that's unanimous, yeah. Okay, Zok the Gemara. Ha'oived, ha'uber, va'yavim, va'erisin, va'cherish, uben teshashanim v'yamechad, poistel v'loy machil. So let's see what this means. We know what it means. A uber is poistel v'loy machil, right? A uber means if a woman is pregnant, then if she's a bas Yisrael who married a kohen, the fact that she's pregnant will not allow her to eat truma. She's not allowed to eat truma until the baby's born. On the flip side, if she was a bas kohen who married a Yisrael, and the Yisrael dies, but she's an uber, she won't be able to go back home and eat truma on behalf of the uber. So that's where the uber is posel bein Michael. A yavam as well. A woman is married to a kohen, and he dies without children. So now she falls to Yibam to his brother. She will not be able to eat truma because she's a shemeres yavam to a kohen. On the flip side, if she's a kohenes and she was married to Yisrael and her husband died without children, and now she fell to Yibam to his brother, she will not be able to eat truma because of that. But erison, the same thing happens with erison. V'acherish, or a marriage, a nesuin done by a cherish. All of these items, if it was a Yisrael doing it, it'll stop her from eating truma. And if it's a kohen doing it and she's a bas Yisrael, she won't be able to eat truma because of this relationship. And someone who's only 9 years old in one day, the Gemara is going to explain exactly how this fits into this brisa, into the Mishnah. Poislin, he will passel, v'loy ma'achilin, and he won't be able to Michael somebody with truma. Again, the Gemara is going to explain what the specifics of what this case is referring to. Safek hevi be'Cyrus, the Safek shaloi hevi. So Rashi learns what this means is. I'm sorry. Safek shubentesha shalom yemecha safek she'enai, and that's we'll leave for later. Or Safek hevi be'Cyrus, the Safek shaloi hevi. Rashi learns what this means is. Safek shehevi, Safek shalevi means he made erison. Going back on the earlier case, if he made erison, if a Yisrael made erison on a bas kohen, so earlier we said if a Yisrael made erison on a bas kohen, she will no longer be able to eat truma. Well, what if it's a safek if he had beis erison on? So it's a safek if he's a gadol, right? Safek hevi beis erison or Safek shalevi. In such a case, the halacha is we go l'chumra on both sides. We consider her married l'chumra, but we also consider her not married l'chumra. Okay.
Check. They didn't check. We're talking post facto.
Yeah, you didn't check. Yeah, we didn't check. So therefore, either way, if he's a Yisrael making the kedushin, he'll become puzzle from truma, and if it's a kohen making the kedushin, it won't be marchal. Now we have now that we're talking about tzveks, we had a new case. What happens if Reuven was married to the daughter of Shimon? Reuven was married to the daughter of Shimon, but Reuven was also married to another girl. And Nafal Abayis Olav Ve'al Basachim. And Reuven died in a collapse that was with him and Shimon's daughter, right? So now Ve'eni Yedu Ezer Meis Rishon. We don't know who died first. So let's think about it. If Reuven died first, right? So when Reuven died, he left over two wives. One wife that was Shimon's daughter, and one wife was a stranger. Would Shimon be able to do Yibum if one of the two wives was his daughter? No, he wouldn't be able to. But what if Reuven's wife died first? What if Shimon's daughter died first? That means when Reuven died, he was only married to one woman. So then Shimon would be able to do Yibum. So since we don't know, the tzara, that's chalitza, and not Yibum. Why? What is the reasoning behind this uber? It's Poisel, but it's not Michael. So it's simple as Ibas Koyin li Yisraeli. If she was a Bas Koyin that married Yisrael, Pasala, he will passel her from eating truma. Why? Because it says Kinu Urea Pratu Muberes. It says in the pasuk that if she's married to a Koyin, if she's married to a Yisrael, she cannot eat truma. But if her husband dies, she goes back to her father's household, Kinu Urea, just like she was before she got married. Amu Beres can't go back to the way she was before she got married because now there's a baby there. And Ibas Yisrael a Koyin, and if it's a Bas Yisrael a Koyin and she's pregnant, Loi Michael, why? Because Yelud Michael, she ain't Yelud any Michael. This Uber will not allow her to eat Truma until the baby is born. So these are halachas that we're familiar with. Hayavim. Again, Ibas Koyin li Yisrael, if she's a Bas Koyin who was married to Yisrael, the Yisrael died, and now she fell to Yibum to his brother, Pasala, she'll become Pasal. Because it says, V'shava el Beisavia. When can she eat Truma going back to her father's household? That's if she can go back. Prat l'shemesh Yavam, who can't go back, she still needs a Yibum from her husband's brother. And Ibas Yisrael a Koyin, if she was a Bas Yisrael married to a Koyin, Loi Maichela, the fact that she's waiting to get Yibum from the Koyin doesn't allow her to eat Truma, because Kinyan Kasboy Omer Achmona, Baha Kinyan Dal. Kinyan Kasboy, a Kedushin might give her the right to eat Truma. But this is not a Kedushin. This is his brother's leftover marriage. It's the Zik of Ibum that does not allow her to eat Truma. Okay, let's stop here. And the Mishnah will be Mamshech tomorrow. Now we're actually right on the dot. We're right on the dot. So tomorrow we'll start from here. Oh,
You know what I got upset when you didn't say